Welcome back. Thank you once again for hanging out with us. This is the one and only IT and the D show. I'm your host, Bob Waltonspiel, hanging out with producer, co-host extraordinaire, Randy Walker. Guest this week, he is a repeat offender, Matt Van Italie. He's from SEMA. We're going to be talking, guess what? AI. It's crazy. It's taken over the world. But no, Matt's been around. His company's been around since 2017. They used to do, you still do, code reviews, CTO dashboards, evaluating third-party dev shops. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's fantastic on the microphone. So this should be a great show. Find us online, itinthed.com. Do us a favor, give us a like on the socials, subscribe to us everywhere fine podcasts are sold. Don't forget meetup.com/itinthd. March 21st, we're going to be at the Eastern Palace Club, big old tiki bar with fantastic barbecue and good drinks. Come on out, hang out, no cover, no speakers, just a bunch of IT folks doing what we do, which is not hand out business cards and talk about stupid stuff. All right. I know, right? That's what we do. Speaking of stupid stuff, I know I talked about you guys before the show, but the movie BlackBerry, if you have not seen it, run to, I forget what it's streaming on, but it's free. It's not free because you're paying for monthly streaming bills, but it's literally fantastic. It took me almost 20 minutes to figure out the lead. One of the leads in the movie was in It's Always Sunny. He shaved his head like a bald 80s like lawyer look. But literally, if you're into anything startup culture, geek, coding, business dealings, getting MVPs out the door, it hits everything. It's a fantastic film. And I'm shocked that it's that the company went away. I used to have one, the one with the trackball, Randy. Do you remember that one? That was I had that one.
I did also have a trackball one. I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was goofy because it like you didn't really click on much. It only had like mail and internet. There's only like 4 things and like a stupid game or something. But that was a fantastic. But then like the way as that's rolled out and that's got like 40% market share, they roll out what's supposed to be the iPhone killer, which turned out to be the biggest piece of garbage. And then I guess Verizon sued them so much because of damages, basically took the company under. It's still to this day my favorite headline in any newspaper in the history of humanity was, I know it's sad that people get laid off, but it was, 6,000 rim jobs lost in Canada. We still don't, I think they're still floating over Saskatchewan somewhere. But that was Randy, wasn't it? You're not going to answer because you're on mute. But like, wasn't it, was there job site rim.jobs? I swear to God, I think it was. Yeah. And Randy's nodding. So got no microphone. I don't know what the hell he did. He unplugged it. Did you plug it back and plug it in? And that's what we learned.
Have you tried turning on and off your computer?
Exactly. We can't make fun of Randy. Who can we make fun of? But we're not going to make fun of Matt because he's our guest. Matt, how you doing?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to make fun of you real quick. You reached out to go be on the show, and I talked to you like I've never talked to you before. And as I'm getting through this conversation, I'm like, God, that name looks familiar because how many people are named Van, Italie? And I look up that you were on the show 2 years ago, and I'm like, I hate myself for not having the memory of, but
I am always interested in hearing interesting people, and your story is super interesting. I was glad to hear it again.
No, I know as I'm introducing myself. So I grew up in, no. But Matt founded SEMA Software. We're gonna get into the good stuff because it's like we were talking about. It's been the topic of conversation for about the past 2 months at least, talking about the good world of AI. I'll tell you what I'm seeing if you tell me what you're seeing.
Yeah, please.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, my favorite thing summed up is we're sitting in front of a pretty large automotive company and we're talking Gen AI, and they look at us straight in the face and say, you're going to be like the last 12 companies that sat in front of me. You're going to say, hey, here's some great stuff. Oh, by the way, you need to buy this. Your foundation's broken. Oh, you need to secure that. Oh, your data quality is crap. And then you're going to try to sell me 6-7 tools to fix that. And then we're going to come back to the good stuff is talking about this. And I think that's the way of the world right now. It's very difficult to deploy something right now unless it's a very, very limited environment and very, very secure and very clean data. So I don't know what's going on your side of the world.
Yeah, well, we have the really good fortune, the privilege to work with and talk to organizations at extremely different levels of scale. And we're absolutely hearing the same thing for the largest organizations, that whether it's the security risks or the change management or the compliance risks, which we can talk about as well, there's some meaningful and appropriate trepidation about rolling out AI at scale, a sense that it is coming. And we predict it in the next 12 months, it will be at scale, even in the most risk-sensitive enterprise organizations. But there's an awful lot of work to do at that scale to get it right. And then on the other side, there are startups, there are earlier stage companies who've jumped in, who have less of the, are more able to be risk tolerant and are achieving some incredible things through the power of AI, and really showing what's possible in terms of quality and speed and disruption, which I think both, it's going to be an interesting time for the medium and large enterprises as they adopt, and frankly as they react to some of these startups.
We seem to forget that this thing's only how old? It's barely 4 months old. From when I'm right? Like last November when ChatGPT hit, and then now we're expecting it to be this glory, like no misspellings, everything perfect. It's amazing our tolerance or lack of it for technology. Like I remember there's an old Louis C.K. bit when he's Wi-Fi on the airplane for the very first time, and it goes down, and the guy to the left goes, this is bullshit. He goes, it didn't even exist yesterday, and you're already complaining about it. But I feel like this is the same thing. Like everyone's rushing and going to Copilot and making the little pictures. But for the most part, the it still looks weird if you watch the writing. Like that, when do you think is it gonna get cleaned up anytime soon, or is this just gonna work itself out? And as because data's never gonna get better, it's always gonna get worse because we're always putting more into it. What do you see?
Yeah, well, we're pretty bullish on the need for humans to be in the loop for the foreseeable future. And I know the world is changing, and I know AI can make AI better and all of that. But in the real world, the risks of getting it wrong are so significant that there is a fundamental place for humans, as far as we can see, as far as the eye can see, to ask the right questions, to put in the right data, to sanity check the results, to triple check what's going to be customer facing or user facing. I do think, the law of rising expectations. I grew up without air conditioning, and now I couldn't go a night right without it.
Exactly.
Couldn't change. But it will still, and it will continue to, the AI tools will continue to get better. The human mind is a wondrous thing. We'll be able to pick out variants and things that don't look right. And I don't think we'll ever get over that feeling of this isn't quite as right as it should be, even though the AI tools themselves are getting better and better.
Well, they keep talking about AI is not coming for your jobs. They're coming to work with alongside you. Right. And I get that wholeheartedly. It almost, I don't want to say it's good. It feels like it's more work on certain applications or certain use cases, but it almost feels like, because you need to have somebody to look at check everything. Is that almost just like a code tool, but it's for writing? Like what, it's almost what it feels like.
Yeah, it varies. Our opinion on it is it varies by the use case. I as a writer, when I'm writing white papers, there is no question that I am a faster researcher. Absolutely no question. I do it 5 times faster because I still have to review the materials, but they're presented to me. I use Perplexity when I'm doing that, so I can see all the sources. I am absolutely a faster writer because the research step is much faster than otherwise would be. On coding, we view it very similar to open source. It's not as far adopted as open source, but open source is code that was written by somebody else outside the organization. It makes the team way more productive in the sense that if you were doing it by hand instead of using either open source or AI, you would, you'd be bananas not to be using open source in 2024. Companies could have a good reason in February 2024 not to be using Gen AI and the SDLC, but there's a year left before it will be as bananas to not do that. But then it comes with risk. You have to do code reviews. You have to make sure it's accurate, secure, etc. It's still a net positive done right. I'm choosing my words carefully. I mean, you can certainly, just like with copying Stack Overflow, just like with copying open source, sometimes there's a better answer if you just stop and think and apply your knowledge. And so it's not a spread like peanut butter, use it in every situation. But there are many, many situations, and the number is growing where the result really is additive to the developer's work.
It's fantastic. I was going to say phenomenal or fantastic. I was trying to pick one. Phenomenal, fantastic analogy with open source and Gen AI. It makes total sense because, when open source came out, there was no way you were deploying that in your corporate environment. There's no way. Today, it's almost it's the opposite, where it's like, oh my God, you're not. But no, fantastic analogy. Interesting that I was looking at some of your bio stuff, and it clicked with the conversation we were having today at work, and the word was innovation. And we used to have back in the day, I'm talking like 6-7 years ago, we used to have a CIO that used to come on the show all the time. Loved talking about innovation. Never said anything. And we started talking about this, and it reminded me of conversations I had 20 years ago at Hewlett Packard, where the services rep would get up in front of the crowd and say, 80% is going to break fix, 20% is going to innovation in your corporate network. And we were going like, well, what is it today? Is it still? Because now you don't have, the people in the SOC aren't looking at raw logs because you have machine learning. You're not really looking at anything from a raw log standpoint. Like, what do you think that we couldn't come up with a number because we think it's roughly the same anyway? Like in terms of what percent of your IT staff budget is going towards break fix and what part is going towards innovation? We couldn't come up with it yet. I wonder what you thought.
Yeah. It's a really good question. We can think of activities that are going away because they've been automated, whether they're automated with AI or not. And we can think about activities that are now being added back, whether it's the AI pipeline or other parts of SDLC, which is the area that we know the best. I do think it'd be hard to quantify, but there's certainly, and again, especially in the coding world and the writing world, maybe less in other sub areas of IT. There's so much more possibility for experimentation, and I'd say with data processing as well. Data processing, human writing, and then coding writing. The ability to instantly prototype. I think about this. I'm sure you've seen Inception, where the world builders can just think, and then this whole world gets created instantly. That world may not be right. There may be errors in it, but it gives you the instant ability to play out certain schools of thought. And I think that's true whether it's quantitative data, whether it's writing, or whether it's code. And so I do think I would be very confident that organizations who have rolled out AI tools, and I guess rolled them out the right way, the quantity of innovation is increasing, even if they're doing it for the same amount of time, because the degree to experiment, amount of experimentation per minute is now astronomical. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. See, now what's sticking out in my mind is, like, let's say you're a organization of 10,000 people and you just rolled out automated password resets, and that was used to be done manually. You have to call the help desk, then you have to open up a ticket, and then the person would have to respond to the ticket a certain amount of time, and then they reset your password for you. Now that person's been freed up because they put out an automated process. But are they innovating now? Or are they just doing something else that is now considered a mundane task, right? Um, innovate, like, to me, like, ever since that CIO came on the podcast and talked about it, it's been not driving me nuts, but I'm trying to figure it out. Like, I think there's only so many people, there's only so many there's only so much brain power in an organization that can truly innovate. And at the end of the day, there's someone else that's got to reset passwords. But it's an interesting thing to argue about after hours, in the basement bar at your office. I figured you'd be a good person to spring this on because it's a passion of yours.
Yeah. I am. I don't know how controversial this is, but I certainly have a strong point of view. I like to think about: are we doing the same thing, or are we doing it better? And better could be quality, could be speed, it could be cheaper. Innovation is about delivering better things than they are today. And I know I'm speaking slowly, but I feel very strongly about this. You can think about strategic innovation and you can think about operational innovation. And to me, the big difference between strategy and operational, strategic and operational, is just the size of the change. And roughly speaking, a strategic innovation could lead to a 10 to 100x change in the organization, 100x revenue growth, 100x cost savings, 10 to 100x, whereas operational innovation makes things 2 to 5x better, sometimes even 10% better if it's already a pretty well optimized system. In that world, there isn't a lot of room for strategic innovation. An organization can only make a couple big bets a year, sometimes one big bet a year, or NVIDIA made one big bet over 5 years and it paid off massively. Yeah. So I personally would be worried about people being tasked to come up with lots of people being tasked to come up with strategic innovation, because I think it's super annoying to be asked to work on something that's very likely not to work. I don't like wasting people's time. I don't like it when people have wasted my time. But operational innovation, could we make something, a not optimized system, 2 to 5x better? Could we make an optimized system 10% better? Literally almost everything we do in an organization is there is the possibility for that. Almost everything. And so the trick for an organization is to get over itself and not be too political and find ways to encourage people to be thinking of that and to be running small pilots and find those kinds of opportunities for innovation and really being open to it, while still recognizing that we all have work to do. So it can't be 100% people brainstorming all day, but finding that balance. We do care about organizational outcomes, so we have to get work done today. But we need to take a break and a mental break and think about, why am I even doing this? And would there be a better way to do it? And I truly do believe everybody can and should be involved with that.
And it ties back to the movie BlackBerry, right? I'll never. There's some of these scenes stick out to me as like stuff that's happened in my life and my career. Because like the guy sitting in front of the executive at a major telephone carrier, and he's like, we want to sell minutes, and text costs 10 cents, and then he goes to the user, and he's like, well, we hate paying 10 cents for a text, but I love texting. So that's when he created the texting for free. So he goes, all right, how about if your users can all you can eat texting only from your network, and we'll give you exclusive rights. All of a sudden it goes nuts. Well, it's a network burden. So now they can only allow. So here now you have the business side that wants to push more phones. The geek side saying, stop selling new phones because the networks are full, and they can't. They had to stop pushing, innovating, and then all of a sudden they're resting. And Steve Jobs comes out and builds the iPhone, and the rest, as we know, is all history. But agreed, though, you get too many cooks in that kitchen. But again, that was it little bit of it almost was like there was like 8 cooks in that kitchen, which is perfect, which is fine. I think if it gets thousands and thousands, then it's a little bit of different of an animal. Um, Wanted to get with you on, remote workforce was all the rage in the 2019s and 2020s. And we got now you're starting to see your GMs of the world, your Silicon Valleys of the world saying, I want you in the office 3 days a week. And you're getting workers going, I don't wanna. We got really comfy in our, being able to walk our dog and pick our kid up and not have to interrupt, our lifestyle has changed. I don't know. I can't think of us being less productive than we were in 2018, being in the office. I'd love to get your take on kind of the where we are with, and I miss being in the office, but I don't. Like today, for example, I got kicked out of 3 offices. I didn't get shushed today. I usually get shushed because I'm the loud, I'm on a call, and but it's fantastic seeing people. Like I have tried to have as many face to faces as humanly possible. What on your side of the world, obviously you're what are you seeing in terms of workforce, remote workforce these days?
Yeah, so I'm certainly biased from our lived experience at SEMA, where we've been remote only since 2019, and I am so grateful to work with some incredible humans across engineering and product and delivery, who I never would have met had we only been working in one geographic region. And so I'm very conscious of the upside for, in our case, the ability to tap a global talent pool for amazing, amazing humans. I'm also conscious of just how maniacally focused we are on getting culture right, and within that, values and communication. I know everybody loves talking about them, but done right, values are the DNA of an organization. There's a cheat sheet of how should you operate if you're working on your own and you need some guidance. And if you can get everybody aligned on a set of values, they can be working productively together, even if they're miles apart. This is my favorite, one of my favorite poems from Robert Frost. It's gendered, but it works better for the cadence. Men work together. I told him from the heart, whether we work together or apart. Oh, I just get goosebumps. But you got to work at it. You got to work at the values, and you got to work at communication norms to really make sure that people understand each other's communication preferences and know when they're responding to them and when they are not responding to them, when they're following someone's communication preferences, which is going to add to their energy, or when they're not following them, and you might have to do it, but it's going to take away energy. I do completely get and appreciate the value of being in person, the spontaneous conversations, the energy for extroverts like me, I bet like you as well. And I also understand that large organizations are facing a lack of productivity, or apparent lack of productivity, by having folks come back to the office. I hope it's distinguishable from the sunk cost of having office buildings, because those are two very different things. If the organization can be successful, given that you really should look beyond the fact that you made an investment in office space. I think if I were counseling an organization that was fully remote and was thinking about bringing folks back to the office, I'd really counsel very specific experiments about the expectations of what would happen. What do we think that's actually going to be different? Are there outcomes that we don't see today that we can't just tackle a little bit more directly before we jump to that? And I guess I've just heard, horror stories about working parents, and the workload. It's not fair, but the home workload frequently falls on the side of women in households. Again, not always the case, and it's not fair. But switching work from home policies switching them multiple times is really burdensome. So I'd encourage organizations, if they're going to do it, to be really precise about what they'd like to see, really ask themselves, is there another way to achieve it? And then be incredibly consistent. Very, very, very few changes, because it really makes a difference to people to try to adjust their lives around it.
I'll be honest, I miss just calling someone. Like, I know maybe I'm a Gen X or whatever, I'm not a boomer, Randy. But I just miss calling, just picking up the phone. Now I have to go on Teams, or I have to just check on my calendar. Like, are you free for 5 today? And it's like setting up play dates all day. And that I don't know how many people are in my boat with that, but if we could bring anything back, that would be it. But if you look at worker productivity, and I'm going to jump into your world, which is software dev, and you have a project, you have a loose due date because it's software. You're running in 2-week sprints or something similar to that. You have someone that's the BA lead, the project lead, QA. Like, you have everybody working in unison. Maybe you're working in a Miro board to build I'm going to get killed for the Kanban board. I don't care how you pronounce it. But you know what I'm saying. I can't see how you would, and you have a task and you complete it. Like, again, just because I didn't, talk to you about the tigers at the water cooler doesn't mean I didn't do anything. And because I walked my dog instead of using that time, I don't think I was any less productive.
Yeah, and another advantage of remote, and shout out to my colleague Mark, is that it empowers people to waste less time. I'm the CEO of the company, and I have to argue for why our engineers should get on a call with me. And it's not good enough because I want to talk to them and I want to chat. They know that time meeting is time not working. And so they have set a bar that has to be passed for the sensibleness of the meeting and the attendees of the meeting. And I just think it makes it a lot easier. For people to stand up for, let's just do the productive things and skip the non-productive things. And so that is another reason. Another reason I'm a big fan of. It's more worker empowering, and I think as long as colleagues know the goals we're working towards and the outcomes and the methods we think will be most likely to achieve those outcomes, remote empowers them more to be a greater contributor to that.
We're in an interesting situation because this is something I've been dealing with since I literally started in this business. Was you have sales needs to, you have engineering building a product or fulfilling a product. You have sales needs to drive, and if sales isn't forecasting properly, you can't staff appropriately, or you can't build appropriately. And it's this never-ending cycle of hurry up and sell something, or oh shit, we sold too much stuff. And it's the never-ending cycle. It was like that when I was selling routers at Cisco. It was like that when we were selling SaaS. It's this bizarre and that's the one thing. Like, the good ones figure out, they get business and they get sales and tech merged, and the bad ones just don't figure it out.
Well said.
So this one's close to my heart, so I'm dying to hear your take on it. But teaching executive communication. Let me start with this. When I was at Cisco, I took a class. It was a week-long class taught by the person that taught John Chambers how to speak on stage. And I don't like to use the word masterclass loosely, but it was a masterclass on getting me to learn how to speak properly and appropriately, and understanding crutch phrases and words I was saying, and jingling my keys when I was in front of a room and talking too fast. And came out of it, I still say ums and ahs. I still speak like a normal human being, not polished. I'm dying to get your take, and I'm going to wind the top up and let you go. But teaching executive communication, where do you start and where do you stop? And it's a lifelong journey, in my opinion, but I'm just curious to get your take.
Yeah. And I may veer ever so slightly into management consulting world. So if I ever go too far in, you can just put the klaxon bell and
All good.
we'll move back. So I don't distinguish in this between talking on stage or talking to a person and writing. Obviously, public speaking is very hard and is a thing of itself, and for most people, one of the worst fears. But this is just about whether it's emails or presentations or talking to others. I have really simplified it over the years that I've tried to teach people this. Basically, there's two groups of people. There are people who love structure. That can be taxonomies, that can be lists, that can be a work plan. And there's people who are neutral about structure. Very few people hate it, at least at work. Very few people hate it. So you have a group that loves structure and a group that's neutral about it. If you communicate with an eye towards the people who love structure, then you're making them happy and you're not alienating the people who don't mind structure. If you are unstructured in your communication, the people who don't care that much about structure don't mind, but it is so stressful for folks who really like to know where you're going. And so, the leap is a disproportionate number of executives are people who really like structure. And so communicating like an executive and communicating to executives is really about structuring your communication so that they understand where you're going and what your points are. I like to think of it like giving someone the table of contents, giving someone a book. You read a title, that's one sentence. You then read the chapter headings, that's whatever, 10 sentences if it's a 10-chapter book. And you give that high-level detail before you go into any of the detail below it. And that lets structure-loving people not get agitated about where are we going in this conversation without getting in the way of still making a great point and still going into detail when it's necessary. The other thing that, besides being structured, that I think folks who are new to communicating with executives or newer in the workforce in general is thinking about the time you are talking, the time that someone is listening to you, or the time that someone is reading what you've written as having a cost. It's not free to spend time reading or listening to someone. Now, that doesn't mean that communication isn't really important. It is really important. But if you can get your point across in one sentence as opposed to a paragraph or a 5 minutes or 5 minutes, and the person understands and can act, you have given back time. You've spent less of relatively expensive time with colleagues. And again, executives are frequently disproportionately busy, or at least perceive themselves to be disproportionately busy. So thinking about, it's like bandwidth days when you actually had to manage how much what you were going to download and how much it was going to cost. If you actually treat your colleagues like, well, let me do some more work. Let me process this down. Let me get to the gist faster for my audience. I recommend doing that for everybody. It's not just that you should manage up that way, but it happens to be particularly useful for folks who are busy or perceive themselves to be very busy.
See, Matt, that at least from my side of the world, you see three things that immediately, like someone that's verbose, someone with a giant ego. And you try to tell them, like, no, speak in Twitter, not in Word. And they're like, well, no, I need to get my point across. But then you have the users going, I'm not reading this. Are you like, and they skim it and they don't get the message. How do you get around that?
It definitely depends on the relationship to the person you're giving feedback to, of course. And much easier for me to say to you, because you're such a thoughtful and open-minded person, hard to do in real life. But sometimes I found it effective to lead with curiosity. What is your goal from this next conversation with this person? What do you hope to get out of it? You verbose, big ego person. Okay, this is implicitly. Okay, that's your goal. Let's have the conversation. Let's see. Do you think you achieved it? Do you think there's how did you respond when this, what was your reaction when this person did this or that? Do you think a different approach might help you? And can we curse on this or can we not curse on this?
Of course.
Podcast. Okay. You can't bullshit your way through fake curiosity. If you're not curious, don't try it because it's freaking the worst. Only ask questions where you genuinely when you genuinely don't know the answer, because people can see through it forever. So it's not, Bob, I really wonder if maybe you were more X, it would work. And you already know the answer is X. If you're thinking that, just freaking say it and let the person react to it or not. But if you the person who wants to give advice to a peer or to someone or someone up the chain, and you can genuinely come with curiosity, I wonder, what are you trying to achieve? Did that work? Do you think a different way could work better? I think it's disarming. And it's disarming, and it maximizes the likelihood that you as the person coaching can be heard by the coachee.
Got it. No, it makes sense. I think, and again, that's lifelong learning. This isn't something that you're just going to go walk in and go, here's the magic pill. And you're going to go, oh yeah. There's somebody I've been mentoring, below the age of 30. There's, it's very rare these days in IT. I don't know where we had that talk the other day. Where are the kids? Where are where's the next generation? It seems like everyone I'm working with is my peer group, and you have to have a super dynamo, that coming up that gets it. It's very rare, and that's another topic for another conversation for another day. But again, this is a lifelong learning. I've been working with him on pacing, and don't because you want to get all the information out in front of as many people as fast as you can, because oh my god, that I've been studying all night, and instead and you came out of the management consulting world. The spreadsheet or the PowerPoint slides are eye charts. It's I learned a long time ago, if, they're reading all of it and they're not listening to you talk. So put as many words on there as you want them to read, give them a couple seconds, it's an art, it's a thing. So Matt, we could talk to you all night, but for the, Randy's giving me the death stare. I'm just kidding. He's not. But we're going to cut you loose. We can find you at, we're going to post everywhere to find you on LinkedIn, online, in the show notes. Can't thank you enough for your time and insight. This is, it's always great to talk to you again. So
I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. We definitely welcome back. We'd love to have you back. So Matt Van Italie, SEMA, find all the notes and find all his links and notes. And we're going to wrap things up for this edition of the IT and the D Show. On behalf of Bob and Randy, do us all a favor. Drink up your drinks, get your phone numbers. You don't got to go home. You just got to get the hell out of here. See you next week. Drive careful. Beat it.